Alright, today we're going to be doing solving one-step equations. The basic element or middle school concept you probably learned in your algebra or pre-algebra class there, but we're going to start basic now and then we'll end up doing multi-step equations later in the week. So, when solving one-step equations, the one thing that you always need to remember is that what you do on one side of the equal sign, it's always on the equal sign. What you do on one side of the equal sign, you must do on the other side. Okay? That's the one rule that if you don't remember anything else from this video, you need to remember that. What you do on one side of the equal sign, you must do on the other side of that equal sign. Some people I know probably have learned how to draw a line down the equal sign so they can see what I do over here, I must do over here. But we're going to try to get away from that so we can end up solving multiple steps. Now, when we're solving one-step equations, you've been doing this since you were in elementary school, you just don't remember it. When you were in second grade and you were learning your addition facts, your teacher may have said, what plus 2 equals 5? Okay, and that was to try to get you to remember that 3 plus 2 is going to give you 5. But all we do in algebra, if we don't know what something is, we just put a variable. There's no difference there. We just replace the word what with a variable. And I like to use the variable x. So we're going to use that as we go along solving our one-step equations. Okay? So get that all copied down. Alright, so first thing we're going to do, the addition property of equality. I want you to write that down, addition property of equality. Okay, with the addition property of equality, what you do here, when we have x minus 5 equal to 10, we always take the inverse. And inverse means opposite. So if you want to write that little side note, that may be something you want to remember. Inverse means opposite. You always do the opposite of what you see, whatever operation you see here. So we have an x minus 5. The opposite of minus is plus. So we're going to do plus 5 on this side. And then we come to the other side of that equal sign. So if you want to draw that line, if you're still comfortable doing that, that's fine. And what we do on one side of the equal sign, we have to do on the other. So we're going to add 5 over here as well. So when we do this, negative 5 plus 5, if you remember from your integer quiz and from your number line, negative 5 plus 5 is going to give me 0. That's why I can cancel things out. Okay, you've always heard, you just cross them out. Well, the reason why is because this is 0. If you don't get this equal to 0, then this statement's not going to be true. So you need to get this side equal to 0, so you do the opposite, you do the inverse. And I think I say something over here. We always take the inverse of what's given. Well, we were given a minus 5, so we take the inverse, which is positive 5, and we add 5 to both sides. That's known as the addition property of equality. My answer, when I do this, I'm going to get x equal to 15. Okay, so that is the addition part. Moving on to the subtraction part. Here we go. All right, subtraction property of equality. We're given this equation, 6 plus n equal to 12. Okay, so I see that I have a 6 plus n. My variable, it looks a little different than the last one. My variable now is behind my number, but I'm going to look in front of my number. Okay, that's a positive 6. I want to get rid of it to be able to solve for n. I want n by itself. So to get rid of this, to take it away, I'm simply going to minus 6 on one side, and then I go to the other side of the equal sign. I don't go right here because I can't subtract letters and numbers. I go to the other side of that equal sign and subtract 6 as well. So I do 6 minus 6. If that does not equal 0, you've done it wrong. But 6 minus 6 is 0. That's why I can cancel those out. Then I come over here and do 12 minus 6, which my answer is going to give me 6. My little note talking about the sign. Always look at the sign in front. Okay, there's a reason I wrote those in bold of the number. Because when we get to two-step equations, you're going to see that you need to look in front, not behind. You may get mixed up. You always look in front of the number to take the inverse. Remember the previous slide, we just talked about inverse. The inverse of a positive is a negative. They're opposites. So we take the opposite here, and what we do on one side, we must do on the other. So 12 minus 6 is 6. That is subtraction. All right, so we got the next one. We got multiplication. Not a lot to write down for this one because it's kind of explanatory. Multiplication property of equality. Okay, the reason it's called the property of equality because what you do on one side is the same. Equal means the same. So what we do here, we have to do the same over here. That's what equal means. It's the same as. when we have a problem, so we started with this. We started with x divided by -4 equal to -2. That's what we started with. And I left that part out. What do we do to do the inverse? The inverse of division is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of division is multiplication. So we're going to multiply here, since this was dividing, by the denominator, the bottom number. So we multiply by -4. When we do that, those cancel out because it's like saying I multiply -4 by 1/4. That's going to give me 1. That's what I want. I want 1x. So the x just drops down. And then what I do on one side of that equal sign, I have to do on the other. So I have -2 times -4. My signs are the same, so you have to remember those rules that we learned last week with integers. -2 times -4 is a +8. Okay? Signs are the same, answer is positive. That's multiplication. And last, you should probably already know, what we're going to do is division. And this is one you're going to be very familiar with because it's something you're used to. Division property of equality. When I have, this is my original, so copy the original. This is what I started with, 4x minus 12. Okay? When I have two things, just like when we had parentheses last week with the integers, when I have two things written beside each other, you have to know that that's understood to be multiplication. Now the opposite of multiplication, this is multiplication, the opposite of that is division. So I'm going to divide, and I told you, in Math 1, we don't use the little dot, line, dot. Okay, that's middle school, that's elementary school. We don't do that anymore. We like to use fraction bars. So we're going to divide using this fraction bar. When I divide 4 by 4, hopefully you know that's 1. Okay, please don't say 0. Don't be thinking 0 in your head. 4 divided by 4, it goes in there one time. So I have 1x here. That's what I want. I want one variable. That x is my variable, so I have one variable. And then what I do on one side, I have to do on the other. So 12 divided by 4 is going to give me 3. Okay. The reason we do that, so we can get this variable by itself. And essentially there's a 1 in front because 4 divided by 4 is 1. All right? So those are the four big properties. The other big thing that you just learned was that the inverse rule, the inverse, we always do the opposite of what's given. So the opposite of what was given here was division, because of what we were given was a multiplication problem. Those are the 5 big things that you need to know in order to help you do your turn. So your turn, you got 4 problems. It's going to be on you. I'm not helping you. I'm not doing them. I want to see if you can go back, look at what we just did, and apply it to these problems here. I'm going to give you a hint. You're needing to subtract. This is a subtraction. This is addition, property of equality. This is division, property of equality. And this is multiplication, property of equality. So make sure you're multiplying on both sides of your equal sign for this one, dividing on both sides for this, subtracting on both sides for that, and adding for both sides of this. Make sure you have that done. If you have any extra questions, please put them on this page so when I come around and check, I'll be able to see your questions there.